Good evening, everyone. This is the George here with a different kind of stream. This is going to be a basketball themed stream. And if you notice, like I have a new avatar, new logo. Basically, this is going to be a channel that's going to be movies and basketball talk. So, so obviously this isn't a movie stream, like I said, but I still want you guys to stick around because I know there's some people that aren't into movies but are also into basketball. If this is your first time here, please subscribe. And basically, I want to talk a little bit about like why I want to do basketball streams. I've always been into basketball. Basketball is one of my favorite sports. I used to play it. I used to manage it in high school, and I'm obviously into the NBA. I follow the NBA a lot. I love watching basketball, and I want to also use this as like a test run for basketball streams in the future because I've never talked about it on YouTube. So this stream's not going to be that long, probably like around an hour. And this is kind of like what I see for the playoffs. Like, what teams do I think are safe to make the playoffs? Who I think will make the play in, and who will not make the playoffs. Now, just to summarize the season, it's been a very interesting basketball season. After last year, when the Golden State Warriors beat the Boston Celtics, no one really knew what was going to happen. And it's been interesting, to say the least. The Brooklyn Nets have basically been a dramatic saga with so much happening between the drama of Kyrie Irving, the trade demands of Kevin Durant, and then later Kyrie Irving. Um, Golden State, the inconsistency of the Golden State Warriors, the Phoenix Suns starting the season strong, but then dropping when Devin Booker got hurt. The Boston Celtics being on a roll for the most part, they've kind of slowed it down. The other big surprise has been like the New York Knicks and how well they've played. But also some teams have disappointed. The Chicago Bulls, who were a pretty good team last year, are currently not in the play-in run. But we're going to get into these teams. We're going to get into what teams I think are safe to make the playoffs, what teams need to work harder, because we really got a month left of the season. Like the playoffs start in April, and I know like the seeding's probably going to be beginning soon. And we got some basketball games on tonight, some important basketball games. So I'm gonna look at the standings. I'm gonna put up the standings and just show you guys like how the lookout of the NBA season is if you haven't been following it. This is not exactly a prediction of who's gonna win the championship. I'm gonna wait to do that. This is just like summarizing like some of these teams that are competing and how they are looking. Let's see. So we're gonna look at the East first, and basically we had a shift recently at the top of the East with the Milwaukee Bucks now being the number one. See, and also the number one team in the league. Let me make sure it's correct. Yeah, the number one team in the league in general. They have a better record than the Denver Nuggets. Milwaukee just had a pretty big winning streak recently. And they've also made some moves that I think have helped this team out. And obviously, Giannis Antetokounmpo is phenomenal. Drew Holiday's had an all-star season this year. He's been great for this team. And Chris Middleton's like slowly getting back into playing pretty well. But obviously, additions like the addition of Jay Crowder have been pretty helpful to them. They were a team that was pretty busy making some moves after the trade deadline. But yeah, I know their last loss was the Philadelphia 76ers. Yeah, they had a 16-game winning streak. So that really helped this team out, the 16-game winning streak. And hey, Blinded Braille, thank you for checking in. So the Milwaukee Bucks, like I said, I'm not going to say what team I think is going to win the championship, but this is definitely one of the teams that really have impressed this year. And I think this team could have made it to the finals last year. I don't think they could. I don't know if they would have won it, but I think they could have made it last year if Chris Middleton was healthy. Um, yeah, these other teams, to me, like the top four teams in the East, the Boston Celtics, the 76ers, and the Cavaliers, to me, are the safe bets. Boston Celtics, I know they dropped a little bit, but they're still a great team. Although they've lost three in a row, they need to get back on track. But Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown are phenomenal players. So I wouldn't like scratch this team off just yet. The Philadelphia 76ers. Obviously, my concerns with the Sixers are in the playoffs, and once we have the official final playoff look, we will determine like how the 76ers are going to look. And by the way, this is going to be a solo stream, but hopefully the next time I do a basketball stream, I can get some people on who are interested in the subject and we can talk about like our predictions. But I think Philly's always been a pretty good regular season team, so I'm not really worried about them. And I think what's obviously helped them has been the situation in Brooklyn, and we're going to get into Brooklyn pretty soon. But Joel Embiid and James Harden have been playing pretty well. But yeah, they're not that far behind with Boston. The Cavaliers have been one of the really good teams of this year. Adding Donovan Mitchell has been very helpful. I'm going to look at Cleveland real quick. So we're going to look at the stats for Cleveland because this has been one of the teams that I think have caught people by surprise. But with having someone like Donovan Mitchell, who's had a great year, averaging almost 28 points a game, has been really helpful. Darius Garland, who missed some time, but he's like been playing all-star numbers as well. Jared Allen has also been very key. Karis LeVert. But they have a really good team. They did recently get rid of Kevin Love. So they don't have that depth that they used to have with having Kevin Love. But I think they're safe to make the playoffs as well. To me, the top 14 teams in the East are safe. To me, they're the teams that I think are fine. So let's look at the next two teams, which are our New York teams. The New York Knicks and the Brooklyn Nets. These teams hit home. The New York Knicks have been the surprise team of the year. Now, if we remember 2 years ago, the New York Knicks had made the playoffs as a fourth seed. They had a really good season, but they lost in 5 games to the Atlanta Hawks. And then last year, they dropped off. Julius Randle was not playing that well. They signed Kemba Walker, but that didn't work out. So the key move that they made that has helped this in the season has been Jalen Brunson. Jalen Brunson has averaged almost 24 points per game this season. He's been phenomenal this year. I'm a bit surprised he wasn't picked to be an all-star. But I think at the time when they're picking, like making the all-star selections, the Knicks didn't win as many games as they have been winning. But yeah, Brunson has been terrific for them. They finally have a starting point guard that can play big numbers. Julius Randle has bounced back big this year. He's averaging 25 points per game. RJ Barrett, I think, has stepped up pretty well this year. Let me look and see what his numbers were last year because I don't think he had that great of numbers last year. Let me see all his stats. Oh yeah, he had 20 points per game last year. It was like his numbers are fine. For some reason I thought his numbers weren't as good last year. But yeah, RJ Barrett, he's also been pretty good as like the third best player of the team. I think he's where he needs to be. And maybe he will be an all-star in the future. Emmanuel Quickly has also been very good for them. But the key acquisition that has helped them since the trade deadline was getting Josh Hart. And that's helped them with their depth. It's given them some bench scoring. It's given them another good shooter. So yeah, he's been pretty big for them. If you look at some of these numbers, his field goal percentage has been pretty good. His 3-point percentage has been very good, and that's what they've needed. My issue with the Knicks is kind of like, while I'm a fan of Tom Thibodeau as a coach, I feel like with Tom Thibodeau, his teams, because he plays his guys a lot of minutes, he likes to do like the 9-man like rotations. He's been known for doing this when he was coach for the Chicago Bulls. I'm worried like the team's gonna get worn out. And we'll get into that when the Knicks, like with the Knicks, when we get like the playoff picture. But yeah, while the Knicks have looked really good, and I think they're definitely going to be an over 500 team. They've won 39 games. They really need to win only like a few more games to go over 500. I'll address my concerns when I do that the playoff stream in the future. But yeah, they got a pretty good roster. Some guys have obviously lost some minutes, but it is what it is. So we're gonna look at like the other New York team, the Brooklyn Nets. So the Brooklyn Nets have had an interesting season. In the offseason, Kevin Durant demanded a trade, but he never got traded. Steve Nash got fired right away. Steve Nash is the head coach. He lost his cool at one game, which is a rarity because Steve Nash, for anyone who like has followed Steve Nash as a player as well, like going back to his days, like when he was like MVP for like the Phoenix Suns, leading those Phoenix Suns team to championships, he was always a pretty chill player. But yeah, he lost his cool at one point, and he just wasn't the right coach for a team with some pretty big egos. So I think that was the right move. And look, they were doing pretty good after that, but Kyrie got in some trouble. He made those idiotic comments, got suspended for quite a while. But then after that, things were looking pretty good. The team looked like they can win games. And even when Kevin Durant got hurt, Kyrie was playing pretty well where they were still a top 4 team in the East. But then Kyrie demanded a trade because while he wanted a contract extension or wanted to stay, the Nets weren't going to give him the money that he wanted. And so basically they traded him to the Dallas Mavericks, and we're going to get into Dallas when we get into the West. And then Kevin Durant was traded to Phoenix. And so if we're going to look at the roster now or look at the stats now, I mean, they got Mikal Bridges, and Mikal Bridges has been playing pretty well for them. He's been averaging 26.5 points per game. So he's a younger player. So that's like a good piece for your future. 26 years old. But I mean, that's not also very young either, because he's going to be 27 in August. So the thing is, can you build your team around someone who is breaking out late? Sometimes that doesn't always work out well. He's keeping them in the playoff picture. I'll give him that. But this doesn't scream like future superstar to me. I mean, some of these other players, like these are respectful players. Spencer Dinwiddie, putting up respectful numbers. Nick Claxton. Cam Thomas was playing pretty well at first. I think he's dropped off a little bit. Let me look. Yeah, he's had a bit of a drop. His minutes have dropped significantly, and his scoring numbers have dropped significantly. So the thing is, I think the Knicks, out of the 2 New York teams, I think the Knicks are safe to make the playoffs. I think the Nets, I mean, because of having KD and Kyrie for like the first half of the season, they won enough games where they could be safe. But I also feel like I'm going to look at the other teams. There's a good chance if the Miami Heat can pull together and like if they go on like a winning streak or something, there's a good chance the Miami Heat could slide into that sixth part. And we're going to get into the Heat because we're going to get into the play-in teams. So I wouldn't say Brooklyn's 100% safe. I think the Knicks are 90% safe. So in the play-in picture, right now it's the Miami Heat, the Atlanta Hawks, the Toronto Raptors, and the Washington Wizards. Only one of these teams are over 500, the Miami Heat, which are actually one of the more disappointing teams because they won 53 games last year. They were a game away from making the NBA Finals. And Jimmy Butler's missed quite a lot of time, but he's averaged like almost 22 points per game. Bam has averaged 21 points per game. Tyler Hero, 20 points per game. Their three best players have averaged really good numbers. But the thing is like some of them have missed time. Kyle Lowry has had a major drop in production. I know they added Kevin Love, but it doesn't seem like it's really translating as much. And I know they wanted to make like bigger moves. I think they were a team that was looking to get Russell Westbrook, but that didn't happen. The Heat have been one of the more disappointing teams this season. It feels like one season they'll be a title contender in the Jimmy Butler era, then the next season they'll be like a first round playoff exit, and then the next season go back to being like a playoff contender. And this season they're back to like, being in the play. And I think out of all the play-in teams, this will probably be the team that could maybe get the sixth seed if something happens where Brooklyn starts losing games. I also feel like of the play-in teams, this is like the one that will win its like the play-in. But in fairness, this is the only play-in team that has a winning record. All these other teams, well, I mean, I wouldn't say. I mean, I'll be fair. Some of these teams, from like the Atlanta Hawks, Toronto Raptors, Washington Wizards, Chicago Bulls, and the Indiana Pacers, well, not maybe the Pacers. I think the Pacers have actually kind of performed a bit better than they were expected. But like those other four teams have been the disappointing teams this season. I'll get into the Atlanta Hawks first. Remember 2 years ago, the Atlanta Hawks basically made it further in the playoffs than expected. Oh yeah, yeah. There was a time where I wasn't following it as much blinded, but I've been following it again. I think it's just because like of what's been happening with COVID. It was just getting hard to follow again, but I'm following it again. But yeah, the Atlanta Hawks have been one of the more disappointing teams this season. Like I said, they made it to the Eastern Conference Finals. They beat the number one Eastern Conference team, the Philadelphia 76ers, in 7 games. That was also when Ben Simmons had his big meltdown. And yeah, that's actually another thing I want to get into with the Brooklyn Nets. They're stuck with Ben Simmons, who has basically lost all his confidence. I'm actually going to go back and look at the Brooklyn Nets and look at Ben Simmons' numbers. I can't, like, that's the thing. Ben Simmons has become so insignificant and has downgraded so badly that he is not, like, we forget that he's even on this team. Let me find. So Ben Simmons had, like 6.9 points per game, 26.3 minutes. And he's 26. Like, this guy was once produced like all-star respectful numbers, and it's like now he's just another player. He's just another player. Like, his assist numbers aren't even all that impressive, if I'm going to be honest. His defensive numbers aren't all that impressive either. Yeah, it's hard to keep up with everything. But yeah, Ben Simmons, another disappointment. But back to the Atlanta Hawks. Like, basically, that Ben Simmons, we remember he melted down in that series. The Atlanta Hawks, they pushed the eventual champion Milwaukee Bucks to 6 games in the Eastern Conference Finals. Last year they made the play-in, but they won and made it to the playoffs, but then they lost to the Miami Heat. This season, they've gone through a lot themselves. Let me actually get to that. They fired their coach. They hired a new coach. And so yeah, Quentin Snyder's the new coach. If you recall, he was the coach of the Utah Jazz during the Donovan Mitchell, Rudy Gobert era. And I'm a bit disappointed that this did not work out with Nate McMillan because he really changed that team around. Nate McMillan changed that team, and I was even telling people, and I think I even said it with like my former basketball coach. I was like, they got to keep him in the future, and it just seemed like it just didn't work out. So Quinn Snyder, I thought it was Quentin Snyder. It's Quinn Snyder. He was a big contributor to the Utah Jazz and their success the last few seasons. So hopefully this can change things around. But there's rumors that they could trade Trae Young after this season. Now Trae Young, yeah, he's averaging 26.6 points per game. And yeah, he is a star. The thing is though, it's the Atlanta Hawks are still stuck where they were before they got Trae Young. NBA hell. For those who don't know, NBA hell is basically a term where a team is really not going anywhere. They're not competing for championships, but they're also not rebuilding for the future. They're basically stuck in the situation where they're either missing the playoffs, but they won too many games to get a high lottery pick, or they're making the playoffs, but it's like a first round exit team. And that's basically where the Atlanta Hawks are stuck in. And it's a shame. Because this team 2 years ago, it's a rarity for the Atlanta Hawks to make the Eastern Conference Finals. Trae Young led them to the Eastern Conference Finals 2 years ago. And they have I wouldn't say they have a bad roster. They have some pretty good players on here. Clint Capella, a pretty good center. They added DeJounte Murray. Like that was supposed to help them, like getting DeJounte Murray. No, he's averaged 21 points per game. John Collins, I think, has dropped significantly. Because I remember, like, I think he was averaging, 2 years ago, he was averaging 17.6 points per game. The season before that, he was averaging 21.6 points per game. This season, only like around 12.9, 13 points per game. That's disappointing. Because he looked like he was going to be like the second best player on this team. And now it's like, that's not even the case. So the Atlanta Hawks have been a disappointing situation. They've been a disappointing team. I think they can still make it in. But as of right now, they're stuck in NBA hell. The Raptors are another one. The Raptors did a lot better last season than I think they were expected to. And Pascal Siakam's had another great season. Fred VanVleet's also been pretty good. OG and a newbie. The thing is with the Raptors was I think they were expected to do better because they were the fifth seed last year. And they've just disappointed. And the thing is, I think they still have hopes that they can make it because there were rumors that they were going to trade some of these guys, Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby, like Van Fleet, like they were all tied to trade rumors, but they didn't get traded. So I think there's belief that they could make it. I just don't see it. I think the Heat and the Atlanta Hawks can do it. I think what's been disappointing this season has been Scotty Barnes. Scotty Barnes, I think Barnes is basically averaging the same stats that he was averaging last season, like the same amount of points. This was supposed to be a season where he was supposed to like step it up, and he just hasn't. So I think that's been disappointing. I mean, he's still young, so it's not like he's a bust or anything. He's averaging pretty good numbers. The thing is, it's not the numbers that I think they wanted him. They thought he was going to take the next step. So that's pretty disappointing. And I look at some of these players on this team. Otto Porter Jr. is a pretty good player. Like some of these guys, like they're good players. But yeah, no, they've been disappointing. And then there's the Washington Wizards who have been stuck going deeper into NBA hell. It feels like the Washington Wizards, no matter how talented their roster could be, having a guy like Bradley Beal, and again, Kristaps Porzingis, they also have him, and he's averaged some pretty good numbers. They have Kyle Kuzma, he's been pretty good. Despite all that, though, they had a good start to the season. I'm going to look at their schedule because I remember beginning of the season, they're pretty good. Or maybe, no, I think it was last season they were pretty good. But that's what I mean. It feels like they start the season off strong or pretty solid, and then they just drop. And they went on a winning streak in January, but ultimately, they also went on a big losing streak at the end of November and for the majority of December. Bradley Beal is one of those star players that he's too loyal to his team. Like, I'm surprised he hasn't demanded trade rumors. And yet, even though they have like Porzingis and Kuzma, who have averaged pretty good numbers, scoring numbers, it just feels like this is another team that's underperforming. There are a lot of teams in the East that have actually underperformed. And we're going to get into those other two teams. I'm not going to go through all the Eastern Conference teams. I'm just going to go through, well, one of them I feel like has disappointed. The other team actually did better than I thought. The Chicago Bulls have been the most disappointing team in the East, in my opinion, this year. Because last season, they were pretty good. I know they lost the Milwaukee Bucks in 5 games in the playoffs, but they were a pretty good team last year. And this season, they've shown glimpses of being a pretty good team. They've had their losing streaks, but they've also had their winning streaks. They've won against some really good teams. They have victories against Boston, Milwaukee. When KD was on the Nets, they beat the Nets. They won again to Milwaukee. They beat the 76ers. They beat in Golden State. Like they beat in some like decent teams. I'm pretty good to decent teams. They also beat the Miami Heat a couple times. Like this isn't like this team could have done better this season. Because like they have DeMar DeRozan, they have Zach LaVine, and they've been pretty good scoring. DeMar DeRozan has had a resurgence in Chicago. Patrick Williams has had a better season than last season. He missed a lot last season. Vucevic has been disappointing. but there's been times where he's picked it up. I think one of the there's two problems I've noticed with the Bulls. The first one is Lonzo Ball hasn't played all season. Lonzo Ball was pretty key to the success that they were having last season because before Lonzo got hurt, the Bulls were actually like the number one team in the East. Like that's how good they were. But then when he got hurt, they dropped off, and he has yet to play a game this year. They haven't really had an official point guard. I mean, I know they signed Patrick Beverley recently, but they haven't had their point guard that was key to them winning games last year. And he's not returning this season. The other thing is this Bulls team is falling into the same problem that previous Chicago Bulls teams ran into. The Bulls teams in the last few years of the Derrick Rose, Jimmy Butler era. They'll play very hard one night, and then the next night, not play hard against teams that are mid teams or like below 500 teams that won't make the playoffs, that will be like lower seed playoff teams. Basically, they've disappointed. They've fallen into that trap, and they're out of the play-in. I don't think they're going to make the play-in. At one point, I thought they were, but they just have not been good. The Chicago Bulls have been a major disappointment. They've been a disaster this season. And they have a good coach. I think Billy Donovan's a pretty good coach. The Pacers, I'm not going to cover the Magic, the Hornets, and the Pistons. They're so far off. I mean, they've had like their fair share of success. Tyrese Halliburton's been very good. Sorry if I mispronounced that. But outside of that, nothing really special about this team. I mean, Buddy Hield's been good. But with that trade that they made with the Kings, because people were saying, oh, this worked out for both teams. It's actually worked out bad for Sacramento. And we're going to get into that because we're going to get into the West. So overall with the East, I think the Bucks, the Celtics, the 76ers, the Cavaliers, and I'll say the Knicks, I think are very safe in making the playoffs. The Nets, I think it's not as high, but I think they can make it. But I can also see if they start losing, if they start losing some games, and the Heat start winning some games, the Heat sneaking into that 6th spot, and the Nets making the play-in. I think the Heat will be like the most successful team in the play-in. And I think the Hawks will also make the play-in. Will make the playoffs. I think the Raptors and Wizards, because they've won quite a few more games, unless like the Wizards go on another bad losing streak and the Bulls can actually go on a winning streak, I think the Wizards will make the play-in and the Bulls won't. It's kind of disappointing because I did have high hopes for the Chicago Bulls, but they just not been good. I just needed to charge my laptop, so I apologize for that. But yeah, that's kind of my picture for the East. And I think the seeding, I think this is the inaccurate seeding for now. So we're going to look at the West. The West has been very interesting this season. They've been a very interesting in Western Conference. Usually they're more competitive than this, but this year, yikes. The most consistent team has been the Denver Nuggets. Nikola Jokic is most likely going to win the MVP. He's been phenomenal for them. Jamal Murray, he's been coming back. He looks pretty good. They have a pretty good roster right here. I really like their roster. I think of all the teams, this is the team that's the most safe. They've got the second best record in the NBA. The Kings, the Sacramento Kings have been the biggest surprise. The Kings have The Kings to me have been cursed longer than the New York Knicks, but the Kings they've been pretty good. De'Aaron Fox, 25 points per game. Sabonis has been really good for them. Like they got another really good roster on here, and their coach. I'm pretty sure it's Mike Brown. I'm gonna check that real quick, but yeah, their coach is definitely, in my opinion, coach of the year. If if Mike Brown, yes, it is Mike Brown. If Mike Brown doesn't win coach of the year, it'll be very disappointing because the Sacramento Kings have been a franchise that have just struggled to have any success. And the fact that not only are they most likely going to make the playoffs, but they're going to be the second seed really tells you that it's not just about the talent, it's about the coaching. And I think Mike Brown gets a bad rep because he was coach for LeBron's like first tenure in Cleveland, and he got fired after they lost to the Boston Celtics in the 2010 playoffs. But no, he's changed his team around in my opinion. And De'Aaron Fox, man, he's been balling. So I think the Kings are also safe. Now we're going to look at the other teams. So the Memphis Grizzlies, I don't know what's going on here. Ja Morant, like obviously for most of the season, they've been one of the top 2-3 teams in the West. So there's obviously that issue with Ja Morant. And here's an article. Apparently Morant's not going to get charged. If for those of you who don't know what happened, Ja Morant displayed a handgun at a nightclub in Colorado, and he showed it on Instagram Live. And you can't be carrying, obviously, you can't be carrying a weapon when you're traveling with the team. There's not enough evidence to charge him with the crime, so that's good for Morant. He's lucky though because he could have gotten suspended for a lot more games. And I think it's like 50 plus games you can get suspended for. But obviously, I think that's going to cause some locker room problems for this team. But it's also been, and you can tell it's affecting the team because they've lost their, like, the last 3 games. I mean, obviously, losing to the Nuggets, that's no shame. Clippers and Lakers, though, haven't really been that good. So this is definitely affecting the team because Ja Morant, he averages 27 points per game. But this is also a team that, to me, is probably one of the more unlikable teams. Like they want to be the Detroit Bad Boy Pistons, but they feel so miserably at it. And they try to hype themselves up, but they really aren't all that hype. They got to win something before they can hype themselves up. I think they're still going to make the playoffs, though. It's just a matter of what seed are they going to get. That's basically what it comes down to. I mean, they've won the same amount of games as the Kings. The Phoenix Suns, I also think, are safe. So Phoenix started the season off strong. Let's look at their schedule. They had a pretty strong start to the season after they got humiliated in the playoffs last year. So at one point in the season, they were 16-7. They lost some games, started winning some games again. But then when Devin Booker got hurt, they just dropped off significantly to the point where they were on January 8th below 500. And January 16th, they sunk even more below 500. Now, around this time, they started climbing back up. But we also know what happened, which was Kevin Durant got traded to Phoenix. So now, and Kevin Durant just recently came back. And we're going to actually look at how the team looks so far since Kevin Durant came back. So Durant, I'm going to find Durant's numbers. Kevin Durant has only played in 3 games, and he's already averaging 26.7 points per game. That's actually really good. Devin Booker still the high scorer on the team with 27.2 points. Aiden's averaged 18.3 points. That's the crazy thing. They were able to get Kevin Durant without giving up DeAndre Ayton. So they still got him. You got CP3. And I know, like, with the exception of like Dallas, these other 2 teams with Kevin Durant came back have not been impressive. But still, that's really good and good that he's performing pretty well for them. I don't think I'm not gonna get into the championship thing. I personally don't think they're gonna win the chip this year. I think next year they could. And hey, Daniel Martin, thank you for tuning in. Yeah, the Suns are looking good. Yeah, the Suns to me are the 4th and probably most last safe team in the West. So yeah, KD's been balling. Devin Booker's been balling. If the seeding is still the same and the Phoenix Suns are the 4th seed, that'll be a really interesting second round between the Phoenix Suns and the Denver Nuggets. That's going to be a very interesting second round. So I'm trying to get back to the seeding, because I feel like this is where we have a lot to talk about with these teams. So the Dallas Mavericks, I feel like aren't as good as they were last season. And I know they made the move to get Kyrie. Luka's been great. Kyrie's had great numbers. The problem is that they could be better than 34 and 32. So this was like around the time Kyrie Irving came on the team. And they won the first 2 games, but then when Luka came back in, they lost some. They've won a few, but they've lost a lot. That's really not a good sign for this team. And I'm going to be honest, I don't think Kyrie's going to stay after the season. I think he's going to leave in free agency. I don't trust him. And I also feel like there's going to be problems between him and Luka come playoff time. Like, who's going to get the last shot? It's like, while the Suns are benefiting with having Kevin Durant, I don't know if Dallas is benefiting. Yeah, Daniel Martin, that's true. I feel like I'm getting flashbacks of the time Dallas traded for Rajon Rondo back in 2014, 2015. Because that Dallas team, before they traded for him, they had a pretty good record. But then once they got Rondo, they still made the playoffs, but they weren't as good. And that's the thing. I feel like they took a big risk in trading for Kyrie. With Kevin Durant still has many years on his contract. So the Phoenix Suns have Kevin Durant for a few years. Whereas Kyrie, he's going to be a free agent and he could leave. Yeah, the Rondo effect. And again, they're both point guards. Now Kyrie's more talented. He averages more points. But I just don't trust him. The rest of the roster, I look at the rest of this roster. Christian Wood's fine. Tim Hardaway Jr. is okay. But there's really nothing else that stands out with this roster to help Luka and Kyrie. I just feel like they're too similar of players to gel really well. And I think right now they're going to lose in the first round to the Phoenix Suns if the season were to end tonight. They would lose to the Phoenix Suns. And that's even if Kevin Durant is not healthy, in my opinion. I know people are going to think that's crazy. I just think like Dallas is not as good as they were last year. I just like there's something about them this year that just doesn't feel as good. Yeah, they both got to have the ball. So I'm not really sold on Dallas. And to me, anything that's not making the Western Conference Finals, to me, would make this thing a big bust. Especially if Kyrie doesn't stay. If Kyrie does stay, then yeah, maybe they can have another season go at it. They just have it just I just don't trust Kyrie. And I get it, they gotta make Luka happy. They gotta show Luka, hey, we're gonna make moves to keep you on. But good lord, this is just not gonna work out. The Golden State Warriors are the 6th seed. So Golden State have been pretty disappointing this season, and I get it that they've had injuries. Steph Curry's missed a lot of time. Like, yeah, Steph's only played in 40 games this year. He's missed 26 games. Klay Thompson's starting looking very good, though. So I will say Klay Thompson's looked pretty good. Jordan Poole's been pretty good for them. Andrew Wiggins is still Andrew Wiggins. But honestly, I think he fits pretty well for this team. Draymond Green, still Draymond Green. The problem that the Warriors have this year is that they are a terrible. Oh yeah, no, I get you. Yeah, like LeBron and Wade. Well, here's the thing: LeBron and D Wade are are best friends in real life. So it's easy to gel when you're playing with your best friend. And like Dwayne Wade, because like Dwayne Wade's a few years older than LeBron and knows that he's more injury prone. He was aware that LeBron was more talented than him. But getting back to Golden State, the problem with Golden State has been they have been bad on the road this year. Like they've just been bad. I think they've only won like 7 road games this year. Been doing fine at home. They've been doing pretty good at home. But they've just been bad on the road this year. And I get it, the roster's starting to age. But yet the aging players, Steph and Klay are still playing very well. Especially Klay after all the after missing 2 seasons basically. But Draymond Green, he's not really that good anymore. And I know I think they traded James Wiseman. And he wasn't really contributing. I feel like one of the things that I liked about last season was they had a really good balance of like youth and veteranship. Yeah, he's making a good comeback. Now, I will say, I think in the playoffs, this team could surprise. Like, here's the thing: I wouldn't be surprised if they, let's say, like if they play either Sacramento or the Grizzlies in the first round and win. Yeah, I remember when this team was coming up in 2013, they beat the 3rd seed Denver Nuggets, who were really good in the regular season. Like they had a really good home record. So, like, don't be surprised if they pull off something similar. Where let's say like they're still a 6th seed and like they play either Sacramento or Memphis. I think they're still talented enough to beat those teams. It's just a matter, and you know what? They could possibly beat the other team in the second round if they make it in the second round. So I wouldn't bet against the Warriors just yet. It's just a matter of can they get it together when it comes to playing road games in the playoffs? Can they win like some of their remaining not home games, some of their remaining away games this season? And can they be healthy? Sometimes Steph gets hurt in the playoffs. I know last year at the beginning of the playoffs he got hurt. Because that's been another key factor. A lot of these guys have missed a lot of time. Steph missed 26 games. Clay still missed 12 games. And Andrew Wiggins has missed a lot of games. More games than Steph. And he's been a pretty good player for them. So they gotta get healthy. I think if they can get healthy, I think they're still good enough to make it to the Western Conference Finals because I think they got more talent than the Kings and the Grizzlies. But it's all about health. They got to get healthy. So now we're at the final stretch, and now we're looking at what teams can make the play. And so we got the Minnesota Timberwolves, the Los Angeles Clippers, Los Angeles Lakers, the New Orleans Pelicans. And the thing is, the Pelicans are tied with the Thunder, the Oklahoma City Thunder, and the Portland Trailblazers. Like they all three teams have a record of 31 and 34. Yeah, I noticed that too. There's been a lot of injuries this year. And it's crazy because there's been a lot of load management. And yet, for some reason, the players are still getting hurt. I'm actually going to look this real quick because I saw that I think Julius Randle was averaging 36 minutes, which is actually that's a Tom Thibodeau-led team. He's playing in all games. He's playing all 67 Knicks games, and he's averaged 36 minutes. That's crazy. But then again, like Michael Jordan used to play crazy minutes, like 38 minutes a game, and he would play all 82 games or miss like a game or two. So the Minnesota Timberwolves, this has been a really rocky team. They made the move to get Rudy Gobert in the offseason, which to me was just weird because you already have a center in Karl-Anthony Towns, who's still very good. Although he's dropped, his numbers have dropped. And he hasn't even played that much this year. He's been hurt a lot. Like he's been out for a while. Which I guess like maybe the Gobert move doesn't hurt that much. But it's like, and you know what? Maybe if he played more games, the Timberwolves could have a better season because they were actually pretty good last year. I gotta look into that. They gotta do away with load management. To me, I just don't like that idea. I think I remember like John Stockton in his last years was still playing like 81, 82 games. It was playing pretty high minutes. Just crazy how like the NBA has changed. Anthony Edwards has really been carrying this team. He's another one. He's played like 36.3 minutes. And he's played in all 67 of their games so far. Now, they did trade D'Angelo Russell away. That experiment didn't work out that well. They now got Mike Conley. And his numbers aren't as big, but I think maybe he fits the team mold better. I think they're going to make the play-in. I think they can also win the play-in. I think they still got enough talent. And if Karl-Anthony Towns can get back and be healthy, I think they could make it. They did pretty good last year. This is another team that's had its ups and downs. But hey, they're pulling through. To me, the Clippers have been the biggest disappointment in the West. Like Kawhi Leonard came back this year. Everyone was saying, oh, the Clippers, this is going to be the year the Clippers are going to break through the West. This is going to be their year. Yeah, that was a pretty good trade. I'll get into that for the Lakers when I talk about the Lakers, but we're going to talk about that other team in LA that's just cursed, even more cursed, I feel like, even though they've had more success in the regular season than some of these other teams. and more playoff success. The Clippers have just been underperforming this year. I mean, Paul George putting up pretty good numbers. Kawhi Leonard, when he's been playing, putting up pretty good numbers. But again, he hasn't played a lot. Kawhi Leonard has not played that much this season. And now they added Russell Westbrook. Like, they tried John Wall. Didn't work out that well. Reggie Jackson, they did away with Reggie Jackson. They brought Eric Gordon back. Remember Eric Gordon before he was a Pelican and then a Houston Rocket? He was known for, playing for the Clippers back when the Clippers were not a good team. He was involved. He went to New Orleans in that Chris Paul trade. But yeah, the Clippers, they just been disappointed this season. Like, they've had some really good moments, had some pretty good winning streaks, but then they've had some losing streaks. They've just been inconsistent, and they just recently got done with one. And they recently just added Russell Westbrook, and yet that's not even helping them. I don't know. It just feels like Russell Westbrook is not the same player that he once was. He's not going to help this team. I honestly don't even know if this team can win the play. And like last year, I think people thought they were, but they didn't. It was actually the Pelicans that pulled through. So yeah, the Clippers. See, that's the thing. The Kawhi Paul George thing. Here's what we gotta remember. Everyone thought this was gonna be the big thing back in 2019 when Kawhi Leonard, like in the middle of the night, basically announced he's gonna go play for LA, and then like the Thunder traded Paul George away to the Clippers, and they were really good that 2019-2020 season before the pandemic, and then they choked against they choked against the Denver Nuggets. And look, the Denver Nuggets have been a really good team these past few years, but they were up 3-1. And then they fired Doc Rivers because Doc Rivers has that history of being up 3-1 and then losing. He's repeated that in Philly. And I'll get into that like when I talk about like when the teams do make the playoffs, we get the final playoff picture. But then like the next season, even with Kawhi Leonard getting hurt, they beat the number 1 seed Utah Jazz in the playoffs and pushed the Phoenix Suns to 6 games. But then last year, they had these problems where, and I get it, Paul George missed some games last year, but they dropped off. And it's like, this is not going the way people expected. They were supposed to make the NBA Finals. They have yet to. They've only made the Western Conference once. The Lakers, regardless of what you think, they still won the championship in 2020, regardless if you think of the bubble or not. The Phoenix Suns all of a sudden have just arrived, and then Golden State came back. And I'm looking at this year, it's like it can be either Denver or Phoenix. The Clippers have just been a disaster. And yeah, Russell Westbrook's stock. I don't think he should be he should be a starting point guard. Yeah, that's the thing. When you try to pair up players that are a similar style, it just doesn't always work out. Because here's the thing, both Grant Hill and T-Mac, they kind of play the same. They play the similar position that Paul George and Kawhi Leonard play. The shooting guard, small forward, sometimes power forward mold. Like that's the kind of players that they are. Because of their length and like their scoring. And even their defense. But even then, it's like, it's just not working. And I think adding Russell Westbrook has made it worse. But yeah, the Clippers, just disappointing. They're now where the Atlanta Hawks are. They're in NBA hell. At this point, unless they make a drastic change that will benefit their team, they're just gonna either make the play in or just be a first round exit team. I hate to say that. And I can't even trust Kawhi Leonard and his health. And Kawhi Leonard's a phenomenal player, but I just can't trust his health. I don't know. Like, I'm not gonna say I think Kawhi's gonna regret leaving Toronto because Toronto's been having some of their problems themselves. But yeah, this experiment is clearly not working out. This is the fourth season where these guys have been on the same team. Third playing together technically because Kawhi was out last year, but so far it's not giving the results that they expected. Okay, so we got the Lakers, another LA team that has underperformed. Another one that Russell Westbrook was playing for and they were having problems. Now, to be fair, I like the Lakers did clean house. They brought in D'Angelo Russell, and I think he fits it, and I think he'll fit the team better. Although so far, like it hasn't really translated to much. He's only played in 4 games, not really played a lot. But hopefully, like they figure something out with him. Anthony Davis kind of been in and out of the lineup, but when he's been playing, he's been balling. LeBron broke the scoring record this year. That was great to watch. I saw that game and that was amazing to watch. And by the way, I don't like though at the All-Star game how Karl Malone was on stage with Kareem and LeBron. I There's been so many videos made about Karl Malone. I'm not going to get into it, but it just felt off. And it's like it should be celebrating LeBron surpassing Kareem. You didn't need Karl Malone there. I'm sorry. But anyways, LeBron's had a really good season, but he's going to be out for a while. He had a foot injury. Now, the positive is they've they're actually they've actually won more games than I thought they could with after the LeBron injury. So that's been pretty significant for them. And yeah, by the way, they recently retired Pau Gasol's jersey. And you know what? Pau deserves it. Yep. Yeah, Karl Malone. You know what? Maybe in the future I'll make a stream about Karl Malone. I feel like a lot of videos have been made about him, but it's like I'm not even gonna get into that. I want to focus on this season. I think if LeBron gets healthy, I think, and they stay in that play-in spot, I think they can win a play-in. They can win the play-in. I think they got a better chance than the Clippers, in my opinion. I trust LeBron more in the play-in than I trust Paul George and Kawhi. Well, I mean, I can trust Kawhi, but I can't trust Paul George. Um, I think though they're probably gonna lose in the first round though. But overall, I do think this team they've underperformed, but I think like now that they trade away Westbrook, they just look a lot better. But LeBron's got to get healthy. And now we've got this 3-way tie. What team can make the 10th spot? We got the Pelicans, we got the Thunder, and we got the Trailblazers. Yeah, Powell was even good in Chicago. Yeah, he was very underrated in Chicago. But yeah, the Powell Kobe duo to me is one of the most underrated duos. I mean, if there was ever like a player that like Kobe respected so much that fit the Kobe mold, it was Pau Gasol. I just wish Kobe was around to witness like what happened. So we're gonna start with the Pelicans, and the Pelicans. This is a team that started the season off very strong. Um, Zion was averaging some really good numbers, 26 points per game. Brandon Ingram, same thing. McCollum's been playing pretty good from 21 points per game. And let's look at the start of the season for the Pelicans. Pelicans had a pretty good start to the season. At one point this season, they were 24-14. I remember at like one point for like a while they were like the number one seed in the West. But obviously injuries, Zion's getting hurt. Yeah, Lamar Odom, yeah, when he was healthy. Yeah, those were some really good Laker teams. But yeah, Zion's missed a lot of games. Brandon Ingram missed a lot of games. They lost a lot of games. And yeah, I mean Ingram's back in, but even then, even with Ingram averaging some really good numbers in these games, like in some of these losses, he's scoring like 36, 25 points. CJ McCollum's like scoring like 25 points in like a loss to Golden State that recently happened. Even then, they've dropped significantly and are now they've gone from the first to the 10th. And they're another team that I honestly don't even that like I honestly don't even know. I think the Timberwolves and the Lakers will win the play-in games. I just don't know what's going to happen with this team. Like who's going to be available once we get into the playoffs. It's such a shame because again, they have a really good roster. Like Zion and Brandon Ingram, young players. CJ McCollum, great player. But yeah, they just had a really big drop. So the other two teams that are tied with them, you got the Oklahoma State Thunder, which have been one of the surprise teams this season. Uh, I'm gonna. Shai's been great this season, averaging 31 points per game. He's been an all-star. Oh, my earpiece fell out. But he's been great for them this season. Made the All-Star team. And the thing is, I look at this roster and it's like outside of him, like the roster, I mean Josh Giddey's okay, but nothing really special about this team. But they also got all these crazy draft picks. So like this is a team that has a bright future. Um you know what? The thing is, I can't even guarantee the Pelicans are going to stay in that 10th seed because the Thunder have been a surprise this year. And the other team, the Portland Trailblazers, another team that started off the season really strong. Let's go back to the beginning of the season with this team. Schedule. Yeah, we're going to be winding it down soon. Yeah, like at one point, like they were like 10-4. They were a top team in the West. Had some drop offs, but they were pretty above 500. They were like at 500. Then they lost some games. The thing is, Damian Lillard. Let's look at Damian Lillard's stats. Damian Lillard's a phenomenal player. 32.4 points per game. He doesn't really have a lot to work with, though. Like, he doesn't really have much of a team to work with. I mean, Jeremy Grant's a respectful player. I like Jeremy Grant. Interesting thing about Jeremy Grant that I do want to share. Yeah, they're young and they're coming up, the Oklahoma State Thunder. So the interesting story about Jeremy Grant that I do want to share is when I went with my high school team to a Syracuse college game back in like 2013 when I was a junior. Jeremy Grant played for Syracuse and he signed my shirt and I got to watch him and the rest of the Syracuse team play. They won the game. I forget what team they played against, But yeah, Jeremy Grant signed my shirt. So it's very cool and interesting because he's not an all-star, but he's a pretty good role player in the NBA. But yeah, Damian Lillard is kind of like Bradley Beal in the fact that that they want to spend the whole career with their team. Yeah, Damian Lillard, he's a rare kind of NBA player nowadays. Players that are loyal to their team. Yeah, thank you, Daniel Martin. Yeah, he's a rarity, a guy that's going to stick with his team the whole season. Like, it's very understandable when you have someone like, let's say, Giannis, who's had some success. He's won a championship with his team. Same thing with Steph Curry, the Dirk Nowitzki's of the world. Damian Lillard, there's been a drop off with the Portland Trailblazers. He's had a very interesting journey with the Trailblazers. You know, he was there for the LaMarcus Aldridge years. And like then LaMarcus Aldridge left, but yet he still kept them as a good team in the West. But now it's like they've dropped off significantly these last couple seasons. But yet Damian Lillard, and he's kind of made a comment saying how like he doesn't want to end up like Russell Westbrook because like once like Westbrook got traded, like once he was traded away from OKC. I mean, his first season in Houston, he was really good. But like after that, it's just been downhill for Russell Westbrook. And it's like you don't want to see Damian Lillard go through that, but it's like you want Damian Lillard to also win. And no one's, wanting to go play in Portland. Portland, unfortunately, is not a big market team. Yeah, LaMarcus Aldridge. Yeah, those were the years. People forget when LaMarcus Aldridge was an all-star. But it's just gotten to a point where, how loyal can you be to a team that's really not doing a lot? But at the same time, can you really blame that team when it's not a big market? So, yeah, Greg Odom, yeah, one of the biggest busts in NBA history. So let me look at my Western Conference prediction. Who's going to make it? So the teams that I think are safe are going to be Denver, the Denver Nuggets, the Sacramento Kings, the Memphis Grizzlies, the Phoenix Suns, the Dallas Mavericks, and the Golden State Warriors. I think they're going to be fine. If Golden State runs into more injury problems and the Timberwolves start winning some more games, if Karl-Anthony Towns comes back strong, then I can see maybe Minnesota sneaking into that 6 and Golden State getting the 7th. So, as far as these other teams, so I think Golden State and Minnesota, regardless of which one is in the play-in, I think they'll win their play-in games as long as they're healthy. And if LeBron is healthy, if Anthony Davis is also healthy, I think the Lakers will also win their play-in games. I don't trust the Clippers. And whether it's the Pelicans, the Oklahoma City Thunder, or the Portland Trailblazers, I just don't think they're going to win no matter what team makes it. The other two teams, the other three teams, Utah Jazz. Utah Jazz started the season off pretty strong. Lauri Markkanen's been great for this team. They have a chance maybe to make the 10th, making the play-in, but I think they end up on the same boat as these other teams where they're not going to win their play-in if they do make the play-in. The Spurs and the Rockets are rebuilding, so they're not competing. They're not competing for the chip. But yeah, I think with overall, the Eastern Conference was a lot more competitive this year than I thought. I think the West has been disappointing, but again, yeah, this has not been an outstanding Western Conference, like I said before. The only team that has been consistently great in the Western Conference this year has been the Denver Nuggets. The Kings have been a pleasant surprise. The Grizzlies could have, but they've been running into problems between the trouble with Ja Morant. I remember there was like some kind of issue with Shannon Sharpe at a Laker game, and after that, they lost like a few games in a row. I think if the Warriors were healthier, they could have maybe pulled it off. Same thing with the Phoenix Suns. I think if the Phoenix Suns were healthy, they would have more success. But the reality is that there's been some matchups in the West that just have not meshed well, and they're not meshing well. The Kyrie Luka one, I don't think is going to work out well. The Paul George Kawhi Leonard experiment, I think, has not been working. I think when healthy, the LeBron Anthony Davis experiment can work. But it's just like even when LeBron's healthy, AD gets hurt, and when AD gets healthy, LeBron gets hurt. It's just really surprising. Like the East has become the more competitive conference. And the East no longer has some of these guys. They no longer have Kyrie or KD. But yeah, I think I'm going to end it here. This was kind of like a test run for basketball streams. And I'm hoping the next time I do a basketball themed stream, maybe I can get people on and we can like talk. We can maybe make it like undisputed or first take. Although, yeah, whatever team Russell Westbrook is on, yeah, I feel bad for Russ that he's had that like it feels like whatever team he's on, he's been more of a hindrance than helpful. But yeah, I'm gonna like probably end it here. And I know this isn't like a movie talk stream, but it's like I want to try something new on this channel. I do want to do more basketball talk. And you know what? I had a lot of fun talking about basketball. I love talking about like predictions and stuff. And yeah, like I said, I'm gonna try to get more people on next time I do this, and we can like maybe make it like a debate about what teams can do well in the playoffs, kind of like undisputed and first take. Although no one's gonna be like Skip Bayless. Skip Bayless is like one of the biggest trolls. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this stream, and I want to thank you guys for watching. Please like and subscribe already if you haven't, and please share us with someone that is a huge basketball fan that loves basketball. If you're new to this channel, if you and you want to watch more basketball content, subscribe. And if you're also interested in movie talk, please subscribe. Yeah, Aaron. Yeah, Aaron's definitely like I've talked to Aaron about basketball on his channel, and yeah, Aaron's obviously always invited to my channel. Aaron's one of my close friends on YouTube, one of my oldest friends on YouTube. So yeah, and he's always said like he would like to come on when he's got a chance to. So hopefully I can get him on the next time I talk basketball. And you know what? I feel like, and he's even said this, I feel like basketball talk is more fun than movie talk at times. So yeah, I definitely want to do more of this. But yeah, if you're, like I said, if you're new to this channel, I also do movie talk. But yeah, in the meantime, take care. And I don't know when I'm going to do the next basketball stream. Maybe next week or maybe the week after. I'm going to wait and see. Depends on what's going on in the world of basketball. And it might not even be about current events. We could talk about like what ifs, like what if, Derrick Rose never got injured? Like what if like this person played for this team? We can do like different streams like that. It doesn't even have to be about current event basketball. I'll think of the topics. I don't know what I'll do for next week if I do a basketball theme stream. And yeah, thank you again, Daniel Martin, and for all those who tuned in. This weekend I do plan on seeing Scream 6 for those who follow my movie talk content, and I'll be reviewing Scream 6. And hopefully I can like review one of the DC movies. Maybe I'll review the first Shazam since Fury of the Gods comes out the following weekend. I got to catch up on some reviews. Yeah, that's what I mean. I don't want to just do like current event basketball topics. I also want to do like what if scenarios and maybe like rate like some of the best teams or players that didn't win a championship. Like I just don't want to talk about NBA current events. I'm an NBA historian. I want to talk about like past things in the NBA. Like again, stuff about Derrick Rose, about like other teams. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the stream. Like I said, I'm just rambling on at this point, and I hope to see you guys real soon. Thank you for tuning in, and enjoy the rest of your. Oh, that's really cool, Daniel Martin, and I hope you enjoy it. But yeah, take care, guys. Thank you for tuning in. Hope to see you guys real soon. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and stay tuned for what's coming on this channel. Take care, everyone.